everyone, Sharon Kay here from Divine Numbers and Theories, a place where people think outside the box. Thinking outside the box is the new common sense nowadays, and I'm so excited. Please give it a like and subscribe because I'm going to be uploading a lot of juicy content, awakening stories, January 6ers. Oh, so much stuff. It's going to be amazing. So, but with no further ado, I would love to introduce my dear friend, Mr. Chris LeBaron. Chris LeBaron is a sacred flame walker and guide of remembrance. And he is going to discuss something that if someone spoke to me 10 years ago and told me about this, I'd be like, cuckoo, cuckoo, until it happens to you. And then you're like, I can't make this stuff up. So I'm super, super excited. Again, he's going to go over human design and gene keys. And I'm blown away, guys, because when he ended up taking my birth date and when I was born and where I was born and all that, I have a very personal connection to the number 48. So, but first, let me introduce Chris. Chris walks this life as a sacred flame walker, a vessel of remembrance, a guide for those ready to reclaim their truth. Chris does not offer healing. He offers presence, alignment, and awakening. And I love that. Through energy, breath work, and the silent wisdom of the flames, he creates spaces where transformation naturally unfolds. His path is one of curiosity, devotion, deep listening, and a commitment not just to personal growth, but to embodying the light he wishes to see in the world. He does not teach, he does not lead. Instead, he stands as a living flame, illuminating what was always within you. You are not broken, is his quote. You do not need fixing. You need only to remember. And I love that because I think many of us are in that right now. We're like, what's going on? Why am I hearing it? What's up? Yeah. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
an
yeah.
absolute delight to be here.
Oh,
I
thanks,
really
dude.
appreciate you reaching out. And there are no accidents or idle moments.
I already heard that.
The universe brought us together, and
Mm-hmm.
we both knew the moment we met, there were
Mm-hmm.
big things uh, coming our way, and we get to be on the edge of the remembrance, be on the edge of discovery, be on the edge of transformation, be on the edge of being the change that we want to experience in this world, and allowing our lights and our examples to be a beacon to everyone else who feels that calling inside.
Yeah, I love that. There's nothing, one thing that I found, Chris, is I've run into quite a few spiritual healers and what I find and what I love about you is that exactly what you just said. You're not pushing anything on anyone, because I personally, I don't work well that way at all. I've never been one for someone to tell me what I need to do. It's what I feel the need to do. And I think that makes you stand out amongst a lot of people. And I love interviewing people on topics that not a lot of people have heard about. And I find that with the human design charts and so forth. And when we first talked on the phone and you explained that and you're like, you're gate 48. And I'm like, negative 48. That's who I learned gematria from. Right. So
Yeah.
I found that very, very interesting because yeah. You flip the number and it's 42, and that's my magic number. Just add a zero. But technically you drop a zero in gematria. But anyhow, it's connected to the ley line in Utah. It's all we could go on and on. But listen, real quick, in your own words, how would you explain the human design chart works and the keys and so forth?
That's a wonderful question. And what I've noticed is that more and more people are becoming aware of human design And more people are finding the free human design chart readings out there. They're becoming much more popular. And there's already a large following and awareness around astrology, and I Ching also plays into this mechanism.
Mhm.
So human design is simply a representation. It's kind of a map of my unique existence. Someone has created a formula where in when they receive my date of birth, the time of my birth, and the location of my birth, we can look at a star chart, and out in the cosmos, we know exactly where certain astral bodies are. And each one of those astral bodies has an energetic influence. And that energetic influence is what has been introduced partially, not completely, into my DNA. Meaning, my DNA, I'm going to inherit some things from my ancestors. Those are the epigenetic energies that become part of my DNA. They're handed down from my mother, my father, and all of their parents as well.
That's so far out cool. I love how you just put that because it's just like, and can I add to that one
Yes, please.
thing that I have learned over the years, and people can go do their research. Every single president does not make any major choices without checking. I don't quote me on the term, but like a very high-ranking astrologer is astronomer, astrologer.
Astrologer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just saying. So clearly there's a lot to it that, and I find, Chris, honestly, I always wondered now that so many people have been awakening, especially over the last 5 years, like, why don't they teach this in school? You know? But enough about that. We can talk about that later. So, what else would you
There's
have
a
to
lot of
say to
theories.
add on to that?
So the human design, it's a beginning point. It looks at the energy, the influencing energies in my life at the moment of my birth, and also the influencing energies when I chose to enter into my body. Approximately 80-ish days prior to my birth is when the essence of my being chose to come into the body. That's when all of the organs are formed. That's when the embryo is in a state where it can now be recognizable as a human. And so now I'm merging the essence of who I am around that beautiful body and becoming familiar with being in that body. And all of the energies in my environment are adding influence into my beingness. Now I choose the word influence intentionally because I celebrate sovereignty. Uh, that means just because there's a specific energy out in the world or going across our solar system or going across the cosmos, that doesn't give me a free pass to just behave any way I feel compelled to. It's similar to pulling up to a stoplight. The stoplight is made of energy, the red, the green, the yellow. Just because I pull up at a
Go,
stop,
go, go.
I don't have free reign to just behave any way I want to and then just blame it on the stoplight. That doesn't make sense. So it's simply highlighting these energies that are influencing the beginning of my life, kind of setting the song of the expression of my human existence, if you will. And then it's a map. Human design is a map. It is not a label. It is not a definition. It is a map that says, here are the energies that were influencing the beginning of my life. And here are some of the ways that my energy is going to be flowing through my body. So become familiar with all of these different aspects of the human being. And these ones specifically are unique to me. And this is how they want to flow. And so the human design pairs very well with astrology and I Ching, and also the gene keys. Now, the gene keys, I love the gene keys because it goes into even more depth around the possibilities of how these energies can influence me, as well as my diet. Because all of this goes down to the DNA level, at the cellular level, that the water is not in a liquid form, it's a crystalline gel. And the DNA strands are kind of the shape of a harp or a stringed instrument, and the energy flows over it and it plays it as a harp. And that's that energy, that's my unique song and signature that is constantly playing out into the universe and back to me,
I
constantly
love
creating
how
and
you said that. Dude, that's
thank
beautiful
you.
because when people realize we are all so unique and different, like who wants to be the same? Like I look at these people walking around and they all got like those pointy trends, because trends are a label where somewhere and somehow people are making money on the back end. But like those pointy fingernails that look like evil, like and just the Kardashian look like, I'm like, why would you want to all look the same? Those are like robots, you know? So we need to embrace our uniqueness, right?
Well, I can see the allure in testing out different looks and different
Oh,
attitudes and
sure.
different styles.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, I personally want to be me. That's really what I want in my heart. I want to be me. I want to be recognized as being me.
Yeah.
And the journey through life, my own personal life, of discovering that I am enough, that I am worthy. There isn't anything to prove. And
Yeah.
competition really doesn't really play a part in my life. Now it's about collaboration.
Yes.
However, it's the journey and being able to celebrate the journey, gain a new lens around how it is I ended up right here. Look back at all the choices that I made, look at all of the events and the experiences I've gained. And it is fun along the way. In the United States,
And hard too.
they celebrate Halloween, dress up, put on a mask, pretend like I'm not me. Ooh, guess who I am? There's some
Mhm.
allure to that. However, ultimately, I am responsible and accountable for every single action, word that I create, I choose, I do,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
stepping into that is part of the process. Discovering the map of how my energy naturally flows and open up the door of possibilities is great. Learning how to navigate that with clarity, navigate that with
Yes.
intention, that is where life becomes magnificent.
I love how you put it because honestly, you kind of know a little bit of my personal story and how I was awakening. And I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. Like that just happened. I mean, every day, every day. And I
Yeah,
feel like, especially now, since the planetary alignment and the eclipse, like everything, like we're living in the most beautiful times ever on planet Earth. Even though there's the duality, like, holy shit, it's the end of the world. I think that was a movie and James Franco was in it. I'll never forget one of his famous lines. And I feel like it holds true to so many people today when they reflect on how they've treated others. And like, he was hoarding like food and it's almost like they were having a last supper and one of the guys is he just called him out on something and he's like, well, you're a piece of shit too, you know? Like it was just, you have to go back and watch it. And what I mean by that is literally when we can all go within and realize there's more to life than working behind all of your gadgets, that
yeah,
there is a bigger movie playing out on the back end that most people that don't even understand meditation and sound bath healings, like scientifically, I mean, scientists and doctors and holistic practitioners all over the world are saying This was here all along. That's why they put it in your movies and your entertainment and everything. They just didn't want you to know it really works. And you know I'm a high-strung person, right?
You're highly
What
creative and diverse.
I got all this energy in me. Hey, I have no problem. I can contain it, I can control it, but I just like to shine my light like everyone should be, right?
You're very
But
enthusiastic and passionate.
oh, thanks. Well, that's how I feel. I feel like everyone should be this way and find that spark in them, that just finally at that aha moment where you're like, holy shit, there's way more than just behind these things. And that was all planned, as we know. But what I wanted to say was the salt caves. So I've always been born with these sinuses and I have a nasally voice and all that. So when I moved to Utah, I looked those up because one of my holistic doctor friends back east, she goes, "Oh, Sharon, you should try it. It definitely works." She goes, "This is way better than pumping up that chemical synthetic crap in your body." So I sought one out at Synchronicities and it works, but another example for my own personal, this is kind of for the audience down the road who are just kind of dipping their toes into this stuff, is the selenite cave. I can't even take a nap if I wanted to during the day. Can't
It's a
do it.
very high vibration, uplifting, energizing
Ah,
experience.
dude. Well, with the selenite, it's clearing everything out of you. And I am the type of person that don't tell me. Don't tell me. I need to feel it and sense it and everything myself. So, like, I'm that type of person, like, you can just save your breath because until I experience it, like, you know what I mean? So, I'm sitting in the selenite cave and they have these beautiful, oh, Robin did a beautiful job. And I know some, yeah. Anyhow, the lights and everything, I literally fell asleep in less than 5 minutes. And when I left there, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. Because there's just so much going on right now. And that's just a perfect example of another healing modality and a spiritual
Yes.
modality that people don't really understand. They think it's woohoo. It's never been woohoo, people, because when people can grasp their head of how deeply programmed we all are. And I trigger people when I say that, like they're like, "I'm not programmed." And I'm like, oh, I'm like, no, no. I'm like, so what do we call TV commercial programs? Software program. You're flipping through apps and you're going through TikTok, then you're going to Facebook, then you're going here, and you're having less interaction with a human being and all the sayings. And they're like, oh no, I decide what I want to wear and all that. I'm like, but then we have trends that are like labels and people are making money. And it's just a beautiful, brilliant script when I think about the big picture. But my point is when people really think about it, all of our sayings, like literally, we are getting our hand gestures and our reactions from the actors and actresses. People are not original anymore. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It's all a
I get it.
program.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you noticed that too, because I feel like the people that are truly awakened to these times, they get it. And what I have a problem with now is that for us growing up in the 80s, we had like our Walkman and all that. But like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever, right? And now look at
Yeah,
technology. And that was kind of our thing. But now
yeah.
when I think about children, oh my gosh. And then, the parents being so busy and they give them one of these, and then they're looking up porn sites and whatever, and they're getting around these things. And these are becoming their babysitters, and they're the ones that are programming this.
Hmm.
So I love that when I can connect with people like you to explain something a little different and outside the box so people can just kind of expand their brains a little without anyone else telling them. I mean, there's clearly a reason why we have the stars in the sky and so forth, but there's also a reason why they didn't really go over it a lot unless you wanted to be educated in that department, so to speak, because everything else is more or less business. Does that make sense?
What I hear you saying, Sharon, is in a sense, if I give away all of my decision making to someone or something else, then that means I am telling all of the rest of the people around me that I'm not taking responsibility for myself. I'm just put a leash on me and walk me around. Tell me what to do, point me in the direction, tell me which clothes to wear, tell me which food to eat, tell me whatever story you want. I'm not going to ask questions because now I'm going to go work myself into exhaustion and then go home and argue and fight and be grumpy with everybody and exhaust
Yeah.
myself more and then wake up early and go do it all again the next day. So it's that constant cycle of, well, I'm not going to make a decision because now I've given my brain away. I'm not going to make a decision because now I've given my body away. I'm not going to make a decision because, oh, there's nothing else left of me to give. So I guess I'm just going to lay down in a box and feed the maggots.
Oh, but yes. That's a great way of putting it. And I also love what you said earlier about because I've been going down the rabbit hole. I mean, and I look at it and I'm like, holy moly, they've made so many TV shows and movies about someone's essence. It's like the delivery of the stork, you know what I mean? Within the baby and all that. Like some of these ancient esoteric, like people put him on a pedestal, and there's one guy in particular, and I know people would recognize him. He looks kind of Indian like, and he's got the turban and he's got the beard and all that. And he explains to people with this ancient knowledge. He's like, someone's essence is dropped into them as soon as, and sometimes it can come, I think it was delivered within 20 to 40 days of the baby within the womb. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I want to learn at school. I don't want to sit there going, "Durr," it just, there's, there's no emotion or anything. It's just like boom, boom, boom. You can't talk openly about this stuff. And I just find it fascinating.
Instead of being told what to think, I would prefer to be taught how to think, why to think. Now,
That's why the tagline here is we're thinking outside the box is the
uh-huh.
new common sense because there's not a lot of common sense anymore. Yeah, I love
Why
it.
settle for cents when I can go out there and receive dollars? Why do I want just common sense when I can go out there and have uncommon wealth and abundance?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. I
Some
love the way
these
that
little
you said
cliche
that.
phrases.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the average kid now, Chris, and I'm not sure about you, and maybe the audience can relate to this, but I look at your average 10-year-old right now. And I look and I watch. I'm a watcher. Even though people don't realize it, I'm always watching and I'm watching my surroundings and I'm watching everything. And what I've noticed with a lot of kids around that age bracket is they really seem lost and confused. When I think about, let's say, since the pandemic and all that, that's like 5 years now. And I look at how they're viewing their parents and their family and how they're mocking other people online and disagreeing and unfriending and, oh, you can't come for the holidays because you didn't get this and you won't wear. Like, what I am recognizing is these kids are going to need a lot of work to be done on them to, I just feel bad because that should be the best times of their lives and they're confused. They look like a deer in headlights. Do you feel some of that too? I'm not saying all the kids, but there's a big chunk of them. What do you think?
It makes sense, Sharon, because when we're born, the human body does not have a consciousness. It doesn't have the conscious component of our brains, meaning We don't have an analytical filter. Another way to say that is, I do not possess the capacity to make a decision for myself. I do not have the ability for my brain to process the information in a way that I can form an intelligent, educated, informed decision. That doesn't form until around the age of 8 years of age. All of the information goes into my brain, and I just accept that as truth. I accept
Yeah.
everything that goes in. That's why I use the word influence. That's where it
Yeah.
begins, all of the influence.
Yeah. And there's a lot of it everywhere they turn. I mean, I look when I'm out and about, I don't go out to eat much anymore, but when I do and I see a family, I just, I'm like, why even bother? They're all like this, it's
Uh-huh.
really kind of heartbreaking. So,
That's what they're putting into their minds. And so these youth that you're talking about, the 10-year-olds, well, now they've had 2 years of experience with a new piece of their body. Their conscious brain is now receiving information that no longer is congruent with what they feel inside. Now, if they don't, if I'm not taught how to feel, why to feel, now there's that additional layer of intense confusion. And
yes.
what's modeled to me is avoidance, shutting down, stuffing, all what do I do with these emotions as well as what
Yeah.
I'm seeing out in the world? That's enormous overwhelm and confusion. And what do I do with that? If I don't
Yeah.
have a space to express myself, if I don't know how to express myself, there's nowhere for it to go except for inside.
Yes, that's so beautifully said because I just see the pain inside of these kids so much and it breaks
Mhm.
my heart. And literally, they're learning from their own parents how to be an ass. Just saying.
Yeah, I learned how to be an ass.
We all can be if we want to, right? But you get what
Exactly.
I'm putting down. They're just seeing the people that they love, like their aunts and uncles and neighbors and so forth, and family businesses and so forth. They're all fighting.
Yeah.
There is no, and then I'm like, well, if that's the way it's gonna be, and people can't get their egos out of the way and simply help one another, that people are suffering, we got a big freaking problem because they're our next generation,
Mhm.
and it really is all about the children. And I love what you said. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Absolutely. Be able to, like you say, set aside the ego because
Yep.
those are just thoughts. I am not my thoughts. And my thoughts, if I am constantly in conflict with my thoughts, then that turmoil is inside. All conflict starts within. It does not
Yep.
start somewhere else. If I'm not at peace within myself, then that conflict is going to come and radiate outward.
Yes. And then it just builds up, and like your doctors will say, your cortisol and your stress levels and all that, it has nowhere to go. And these kids are only 10. So I can only imagine how it's going to keep tumbling and tumbling and tumbling where they just can't release any of it and feel heard or validated, or because I don't think a lot of people feel heard anymore. I don't think children do. They just do what they're told, and yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
constant bombardment of hypocrisy. It's that constant input, that constant stream, inward stream of information that is out of balance. It's out of alignment. It doesn't make sense. If
Mm-hmm.
if I put unleaded fuel, leaded fuel, and diesel fuel into the tank of my car, how's it going to behave? It's going to
It's gonna rupture or do something or blow up, or yeah, just
exactly.
like in the inside. Yeah,
And that's what
yeah,
we're doing to ourselves. We
yeah.
allow all of that stuff to come into our minds, and we haven't until I figure out how to process that and
Hmm.
recognize, discern, well, okay, this probably doesn't really work for me, or requires more information. So in this moment, I'm not obligated to do anything with this information. I'm just going to set it right here for now, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then I'm going to receive the information that does make sense and allow
Yeah.
that to guide some of the possibilities, and then check in. Okay, now what feels like it's going to be of greatest service to me, greatest benefit to me in this moment right now,
Yeah.
and allow that to move me forward instead of a whole bunch of confusing nonsense.
Yeah. And I'm going to stir some shit up here in a second. So,
Excellent.
on
Bring
that
it.
topic, you know me, because I love controversy. So, one thing that I have learned, and I want to encourage people to expand their minds on this, because I've learned this, and it's because our entertainment is a program and everyone's going to be finding out. Many have already found out. But what I mean by that is there's so much trauma out there. I don't run into a lot. How should I say this? I'm running into more spiritually awakened people and God-loving people and patriotic people and so forth, right? Um, I really mesh with them where they don't feel like they're gonna push their stuff on me and vice versa. Or I love that, for instance, I know what side I'm on, and I know I have friends that are on the opposite side. And there's a lot of us that are coming together going, yeah, there's Grace Sharon again. Like, I'm just gonna scroll down because I love her. And I do the same for other people because we have been taught to fight amongst each other in such most people that listen to this in the future that are not awakened, that have no clue what's really happening behind the scenes, is when you talk anything spiritual, they'll be like, ugh. But the ego is so big and programmed from entertainment and the jobs and their training that they really can't think outside the box, and they'll always think that they're right. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like the program in itself. And so I am connecting more with people like, hey, I know we totally have polar opposite views, but let's judge each other here because there's a lot of shit that needs to get done and the epidemic of helping people in every which way. So let's just put that aside and like, let's just start using our minds for something good. You know what I mean? Like we really need to get, because if the fighting doesn't stop, we're doomed. We're doomed.
Another way to say that, Sharon, is what is more important to myself, to my friends, to my loved ones, and to the entire world in this moment now? That some opinion or idea in my brain be more right than an opinion in your brain? Or is it more important that we collaborate and set the differences aside and
Yeah.
join together on our commonalities? Because humans,
Yeah.
I've lived in several countries, I've been able to visit several countries around the world. I was
Nice.
born in a different country, and I've noticed that people all around the world that I've seen and visited pretty much want the majority of the same stuff. I want to be
Yeah.
respected. I want to be heard. I want to contribute. I want to be of service. I want to feel recognized. I want to feel like I'm part of a community. So let's
Yeah.
start there. My
Yeah.
opinions, my ideas are far less important than am I able to put food on my plate and put a roof over my head, and then
Yeah.
able to share the excess of what I have so that other people have food and shelter.
Yeah. And
And
there's a
I
lot
set
of
my
people.
ego aside for a minute and be a human instead of a right thing.
Yep.
What's important?
Yeah.
How many gravestones have this dude died and he was right? This person died
That's a
and
really
he
good
was right.
point. That's a great point because at the end of the day, what did you learn when you're on your deathbed? And there's
I
a lot of
told you
people that
so.
I told you so 155. That's one of my favorites. Not in a mean way. That's one of my favorite gematria codes from -48. We all kind of took on that one. But One thing that, and I want to get on to my results and just give a little feedback and what I
Yes, please.
found and so forth. But
Number
one thing,
48.
but one thing I wanted to mention is I know I was telling you I'm going to stir the pot with some people and they'd be like, "What's wrong with her?" And blah, 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 blah. I'll be like, "There's nothing wrong with me." What I feel is I know there's a lot of trauma out there. I know that there is a lot of sexual and ritual abuse and things like that, physical abuse and so forth. And I do believe that there is counseling for that. That's a definite niche. But what I have also found, and I've actually brought this up to a few people, and they're like, I never noticed that. And what I mean is, I believe that the spiritual community is going to be at the forefront of this great awakening. And many people can feel it. Something big is coming down, and it's all perspective. Sometimes you have to go through some hard things in order to have them get better. You gotta, anyhow. But my point is, whenever you watch TV shows and the movies, and people are sitting in a psychologist's office, and literally, we all know the psychologist barely says anything. How did that make you feel? And my point is what they ask you, and we already have the answers within. Or I believe that people such as yourself, where you're not telling people, you're bringing it out in them. And here's a perfect example. Like, I don't know why, but I always bring up 2.5 Men because he's always on with that psychologist lady. And basically, all she says is, "Well, how do you feel?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just aggravated and I'm angry and blah, 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 blah." Well, when did you start feeling that way, right? This is going to really trigger a lot of people in the audience because a lot of knowledge is already in front of them. And it'll be like, "Oh, I just remember when my brother and I were this age and my mom did this to us and then blah, 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 blah." That is the peeling back of the layers, but it's also our responsibility to really get uncomfortable because we always hear that, but instead, people are going to a counselor and paying how much? Missing work. And then they're pumping you with synthetic shit. Not saying some people don't need or whatever, but what I've learned is we have been withheld a lot of the holistic practices that work, that take almost the same amount of time to kick into people's bodies. And when I thought of it like that, I'm like, ew, I'm so gross. No wonder why everyone's so sick. They're putting synthetic stuff that is not organic in your body and it's not working and flowing. It's just maintaining. But back to where, like you were saying, it's peeling back of that layer going, when did it make me feel? Gosh, I started feeling that way when I was this age. And that jerk, you get what I'm saying? And I believe that people in the spiritual community could learn a lot from you because I have found some of them to be a bit bossy. Like they're just like, this is the only way. And I'm like, well, it doesn't resonate with me. It just doesn't resonate because we're just talking surface stuff here. And that just doesn't, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Rock on. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in the spiritual community, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need people such as you and others. So I am super, super grateful. But let's get on to, I want to stay on course. Let's stay on maybe another 15, 20 minutes tops. So I want to go over the gene keys. And I was just like, wow, I guess I never looked at myself that way. But sometimes I think this is a good reminder for people to really be open to it because it really does go within, but you don't really realize it until you're like, oh, I never realized that about myself. But yeah. Do you get that reaction from a lot of people that you do the human design charts with?
Absolutely. Because sometimes it's a new concept and sometimes there's so much information out there that it can be a little bit confusing, a little bit misleading. Gene
Mhm.
keys is a system of information, a wealth of information, and it's intended to be contemplated, meaning I bring it into my mind. I welcome it into my subconscious. I invite meditation in. I introspect. I go within for my answers. I'm reading some of the possibilities, and from those possibilities, I'm inviting my knowing center, the heart. The heart is the knowing center. I'm
Mm-hmm.
inviting my heart forward and allowing my intuition to guide me into the options that make sense to my intuition. My intuition will know. So the gene keys has a large amount of information about each one of the 64 keys
Mm-hmm.
and
That's good
presents
to
it.
know. So there's 64, huh?
Yeah, 64. And it's the same with human
Never
design.
knew that.
They're the exact same numbers in human design. It's a gate, and in gene keys, it's a key. They're the same numbers, it's the same information, it's the same energy frequency, and it represents how that energy is moving through my being, this unique expression of as a human, how that energy is moving through. And it can be presented in various styles of language, meaning
Mm-hmm.
if if I am very much entrenched in language of despair and doom and sadness, then certain words are going to make sense to me,
Yep.
where some of the enlightened language won't. So when I am interacting with people, I figure out as quickly as possible what language is going to be heard and received by them. Because
Yeah.
if you and I start chatting in a foreign language, what value does that have to you and I if we're not communicating? If you don't if you don't hear and feel what I'm saying to you, if it doesn't make sense to you, then why even engage in conversation? So human design and gene keys is presented in various language styles, energetic language styles, such that it can be presented to me in a way that my soul will hear it and receive
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then I can begin to comprehend my,
Comprehend. I love it. That's a key word right there.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I
In a
do.
way, it's not a user manual for my body. It's simply a menu or a guide, a map. Here are the possibilities of what this human body is capable of at its um, vibrational lowest and its vibrational highest potential. And so it's my choice. Again, it's sovereignty, my choosing. I make the choice of how I want to be in the world. I make that choice. And so when you sit down with me, that's part of the conversation. Okay, well, why are we having this conversation? What brought you to me? And what do you want to experience in life? And let's begin talking about ways of moving forward. Let's collaborate and figure out what it is you want to experience in the world. And then from that point, we can begin to move forward into the life that you choose, not the one I choose. I have my life.
I
So
love
again,
it.
it's about empowering, it's about uh, enlightenment,
Be
it's
being
about,
open to receiving the message.
yes,
And I love that you were talking about DNA earlier, and I'm going to bring up some things that are going to make people uncomfortable. But I think sometimes we have to get uncomfortable to think outside the box with common sense. So, one thing I have learned, and I'm asking people to be open-minded, but we know that a lot of this was pushed on people, right? The-
yes, it was mandatory.
okay, but my point is let's think of those DNA kits that they doctored up as like, oh, you get to find out your family history and all that and everything. But what people are going to find is that it was never about you. It was about big pharma, they've already shut down some of these. Some of them already, they're going to court over this. Like there's some epic stuff going down if people do their research and go down the rabbit hole. But my point is, and I bring this up, we spoke about it earlier. There is something out there that I encourage all the viewers and audience in the future to look up is the laminin protein. This is something that should be taught in our schools. The laminin protein is scientifically proven, and it is your Christ DNA. Matter of fact, ding, 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 here's where common sense comes in. When you look at the protein underneath the microscope, it looks like a neon cross. And that's where we also get our intuition, our dreams, our feelings, our emotions, and so forth, and that little voice in our head. And my point is that what I have learned is those tests were created. Let's just think now, we don't want to like turn this into, we're all having this beautiful conversation about all this stuff. So I don't want to go too deep. But my point is we know Auschwitz was real. We know how people were burned at the stake for being witches, and kings and queens sent their guards and so forth to ransack houses and all that. What if they were really after the Christ DNA, which is Rh negative? Instead of tracking them down and causing mayhem, have them come to you. Common sense, right? And I want to encourage viewers and the audience to start looking into that and expanding their thought process of how this has been happening behind the scenes, because it really has been. And people all over the world are awakening to this. And I just love that you were talking so much about what is encoded in our DNA. And this, if you talk about the ascension process and so forth in front of people that aren't even awakened, they're like, talking about like cuckoo. But that just goes to show how, I'm going to say it, the ego is in the way, and they're not mentally capable of wrapping their mind around even contemplating that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Dude, I love it. Well, all right. I want to get to, I'm just going to tell the audience, and I'm just not saying this to support Chris because he knows I'm a straight shooter.
Yes, you are. If
I'm
anyone
all
has
love
not
and
yet
light.
met Sharon,
But
she will
I will
tell you. Be
give the
fearless.
shirt off my back to anyone. Like I will do as much as
Yeah.
I can to help, collaborate, and you know what I mean. But when I
Don't
look
behave
at,
unkindly because Sharon
yeah,
will not
if I
participate in that.
no, I see people being a bully, I'll go toe to toe with someone any day. And
I've
my
seen it.
gift, I go right there. That's my gift. I can read someone's emotions and all their insecurities, and I just make them think. And then they just sit there and going,
Yeah.
not, instead of being violent and all that, I use my words. Works way better. But anyhow, I digress. You know me. But I'm saying for the record, my results. So I was born on March 20th, the first day of spring in 1971. I'm really bad at converting the time. What was it? 1:20
1:20 p.m.
p.m. Thank you for that, because it's in like military time. After menopause, I cannot. I'm like, anyhow. But I'm blown away, guys. Like literally, some of the audience may know I'm literally an inventor by trade. I sold to big box stores and so forth, and one of the human design charts right at the top, you're an inventor. I'm like, so funny. Like you can't make this stuff up. And like being a creative and all that. And when you had me at 48, because I'm into gematria / numerology, and that is the missing link. We're being told I can say this openly and people will be like, oh boy. And then someday they're going to come back to this video and they'll be like, oh my gosh, she wasn't crazy. So we're going to talk about there's a gentleman out there that I was trained by. His character name is -48. That's why when you said the gateway 48, I'm like, that's like crazy. How would anyone know? Because anyone else that was coached by him and all of us, it's like less than 50,000 in the world. And when people find out, well, yeah, it's gonna be crazy. But gate 48, a wellspring of profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom in daily life. This gate is your silent teacher. I said that, calling you to trust the depth of knowing that lives within you. And it just got deeper and deeper. And I'm like, wow. Like, and it was very specific when I gave you, I was just blown away. I'm not going to tell all my personal stuff here because I think that's what's very unique for everyone is that when you read these, I'm just like, how come I didn't learn this in school? Like, how come I didn't learn this in school? This would have been very helpful for me. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, instead of having to go sit in a shrink once a week for how long and popping pills and all that, I'm
Why
like,
do I experience my energy level this way in one moment and then this way in another moment? And then how do I
yeah,
communicate my needs? How do I communicate my boundaries and my limits? That would be far more
yeah.
useful.
Right. And one thing that I actually learned, and some people know my personal story. I had a very narcissistic person in my family ever since I was a little girl. Same things Dr. Phil like says. Nobody likes you. You're dumb, you're stupid, and all that. And what I learned is that at an early age, I didn't want to treat people that way because I knew what it felt like. But my point is, fast forward, when I got to a place of really recognizing that it really was emotional abuse, and I feel like it's really wicked when I mean, I think of children being around abusive parents and so forth, and just trauma and things like that. Like you were talking about how everything is just stuck and you have no one to talk to and so forth. I kind of, even though I was an emotional person per se, I learned to ground it in here and it was stuck. Does that make sense? For a
Yeah.
long time until I hit my boundaries. When you finally listen to those freaking assholes that are always like telling you what you should do and how you should think and all that bullshit. And then they finally say something so stupid. You're like, how did I not ever see this at face value? And that's when I really learned that our emotions are literally stuck energy within us, if that makes sense. And you
Yeah.
need to get it out somehow. And that's why, as well as so many people are awakening to, is the spiritual modalities and so forth. And dude, it's so much more relaxing, like EE therapy and the selenite caves and the salt caves and the sound bowl meditations and the drumming and all that stuff. I'm like, that calms me down way better than going to a doctor's office, going, okay, oh, I gotta pay like $500, even though my insurance does. Like, you instantly, as you awaken, you realize that everything is just a trap, an entrapment to keep you in a box. And for me, just really dissecting those emotions and sitting with them, like you were saying, and how they feel and all that. That's why our entertainment always talks about that stuff. But people are so deeply programmed, they just think that it's just some movie. But when they find out entertainment was a deal with Team Jesus and Team Satan, because there's duality I want to encourage every viewer here in the future. Start listening between the lines. They're literally telling you truthful things. And usually Team Satan has that built in, like laughing, ah, ha, 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 ha. And when you go back and listen to it, it's really creepy. And people are finding that out now. So I just love this stuff, Chris. I love it. So let me ask you, do you have any, I mean, I'm not gonna like vent all my dirty laundry on all this, but one other thing that I do want to add to this that I've had readings from people before. And one thing that I can tell you is Chris is the real deal because I don't put up with anything, as he knows. I call people. I'm like, okay, buddy. But what
So
I
what
mean
the,
by what I mean by that is Chris, he is a channeler. And I want to encourage people that hear this in the future that are very not open to this. There's a reason why it's in your movies. That is your connection, like I said, to your Christ laminin protein. And some people, it's so blocked, they don't hear it, and others do. And you just may not be on the same frequency. And yes, frequency, everything. You think of all those movies, like Star Trek and all that. When people find out that stuff's real, when the truth is told to you very soon, they'll be like, holy shit. But I digress. My point is he is very good at channeling when you give him permission in he nailed it. He nailed it on what I knew was right, but I didn't want to go any deeper. Does that make sense, Chris, when we were talking earlier?
and what I
Okay.
did for you, Sharon, just so the viewers have additional
Yeah.
information around this. There are many, many websites out there where you can receive a free human design chart reading, a free gene keys reading. And so one of my sites, www.ourhumansynergy.com, you can go there and receive a free human design reading. You'll
I
need to
love it. Free
download your
is
chart,
nice.
and that's just the beginning point. There is a very large amount of information there in a specific way that's not super easy or super intuitive to translate. It requires more study. And so
Mm.
that's why I say it's a beginning. So go begin there. Receive your chart, read it, contemplate it, meditate over it, and allow those parts to just light up and sing and begin to reconnect with yourself. And then let's get together. And that's where the fun begins.
I
Let's
love how
start.
you put that because I felt the same way. It's like when I was reading through it earlier, I'm like, I know, I'm like,
Yeah,
but sometimes you really need to hear it. And mine was very, very precise. And I love how you presented it. Download it, go to Chris's website. What's it called again?
ourhumansynergy.com.
Perfect. And where else can people find you and
Uh,
connect with you? Through email, phone
Seraphic,
number?
seraphicsounds.com is another one on my
Could you
website.
spell that for them?
SeraphicsOunds.com.
Perfect.
And my phone number, my email address are on those sites. There are also links where you can book a session with me. And so my invitation is down. So let's start with the free chart. Feel
Okay,
into
great.
that. Let's identify first the parts that really sing to your soul and light you up, and then figure out the spots where you have questions. And that's where we can begin our journey together. Now,
And that,
there's an advanced channeling option. I the channeling comes in at a much more advanced, deep level. As Sharon
for the
already mentioned,
record, he did. He did.
yes, I offered you
Real
the free
deal.
stuff, and I offered you an analysis of those things, and then I invited you to ask some very specific personal
You did. I was like,
questions that only you would
Not
know.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I know a
Uh-huh.
lot of your story, but the questions you asked, I didn't have those answers. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I tapped into the channeling of spirit beings and guides. And that's where the consent comes into play here. I did not do that until I had chatted with you first and received
Yeah.
consent from you,
Yeah.
because I invited forward your spirit guides to connect with my spirit guides so that there was that
Aw.
spiritual alignment, there was that spiritual integrity, so that you would receive what was meant for you in your language, not my words, your language, because that was part of my request. If you'll see in the email that I sent you, I specifically said, present this in the words that Sharon will
Would
hear in her heart.
Yep, you did. And they did. Because you know I'm a tough cookie sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, you do not put up with falsehood. You do not put up
No.
with bullying. You do not put up with
Mm-mm.
unkindness.
Mm-mm. Nope. Nope. I call it like it is.
You, you do.
But I think what's important, and especially for future viewers, is that when I think about it, there's so many hardened souls out there. So many people that are so hard on themselves that it's hard for them to trust people or feel like they're going to be judged for being authentic to like ask those specific questions. Do you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? Because
absolutely.
the program is taught to just judge everyone when the last time I checked, I judged myself and my creator. That's it.
There's a common phrase around judgment. It's what is it? A lot of people have heard this phrase. So if you haven't heard this phrase, ask a friend. They probably have heard this phrase. The final judgment. You know what
Mm,
that is? It's the very last time I stop judging myself and I
I
just start to
love that.
be.
I love that you said that because honestly, that is the program. We were programmed to keep judging ourselves that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not skinny enough, we're not like buff enough, like we're, you know what I mean? It's just it's everywhere. And when people stop and they take a moment to listen to some of the stuff that we've talked about here,
Yeah,
what a lot of people, and I've mentioned this quite a few times, but it's working, is I'm encouraging people to recognize when they hear commercials. All you hear is pumping fear into you. Oh, John died next door. Do we have life insurance? Oh, we don't have time anymore because we're so busy. Like, we got to find a home for mom, putting her in. Like, I really want people to start thinking about those commercials because one, they all say they're paid actors at the bottom. And what they're doing is part of the program. And you'll start seeing the repetition, the repetition, the repetition. And what I mean by that is they are normalizing it. They're normalizing it. They're normalizing it that, oh my gosh, I'm already working like 5 days a week and I just still can't pay the bills. But there's an app that I can get paid a couple $100 early. It's not the people, it's the system. Do you get what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
once we can start removing some of that out of our lives and just hit mute if you have to, you know what I mean? It really has helped quite a few people to really start unclenching, I mean, hello, look at all of our commercials, Chris. Most people know now when you, and I encourage every single one catching this, get a little piece of paper. And when you watch regular TV, write down how many big pharma commercials are in 1 hour. And you will find almost 60% of them because it's been normalized. It's been normalized. Like, that is the way to normalize that people would not seek knowledge outside of the box
what they're
to
doing.
look into holistic and all these. I mean, RFK Jr. is calling out stuff left and right. And people can tell me all day long, I'll be like, his family knows way more secrets in government and technologies than any of you. Zip it. That's what I say. But that's part of the
When
program.
when the media, when the information that constantly comes into my brain tells me how to feel
Yeah.
and tells me that it's normal to have explosive this and painful that and crampy, shooty pain things that those are the normal side, the normal experiences. Uh, they want me to feel like that's normal. They want me to be in that state because if I'm
Yeah.
constantly experiencing that, I'm now seeking more of their drugs to
You're
alleviate
relying on the system.
and I'm putting all of my energy, all of my money, all of my time, all of the physical essence of who I am into procuring more drugs and more symptoms instead of untangling the mess.
Yeah.
Untangle the mess and do something different. Make a different choice and show up
Yeah.
for myself in the world the way I want to instead of someone else's idea.
That was well said to close this. I love it because I think that is what people have been doing. They're starting to recognize there's a lot of fishy stuff going on out there, and it's
Yes.
time to seek within. And that is exactly why they always say it in the movies and your
Right.
TV shows, because they like to put it in your face. Team Satan is like, we like to put it in their face, but they're really not doing it. And once people really can grasp their head around that, they're gonna be pissed. Right? All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this. And one last plug of your website, and we'll close it up.
Ah, Seraphic Sounds.com and ourhumansynergy.com
Awesome.
and Community Thinking Tank.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So, yes, Chris and I work alongside of each other. We have created something completely different where it's called Community Thinking Tank, Utah Community Thinking Tank. So, if you're out here in Utah, we encourage you to join, invite all your friends who are sick and tired of the suffering, of people not stepping up to the plate to help others that are suffering. And our tagline is literally 5 hours a month, and we'll find the others. And we literally can rebuild all of our communities one step at a time
Yeah.
together. And I love that. Thank you for that. And I just want to give you all, I ask you give this a like and a subscribe because I'm going to have up to 30 good, juicy interviews and some really great topics that a lot of people don't talk about. So thank you so much, Divine Numbers and Theories. And you can also find our group. We have an open discussion group where people talk about spiritual things, different questions and knowledge and so forth without bashing each other. That's the key. Be open to being open. And if you don't like it, scroll on by. But the point is people are questioning a lot of things. And that's what I love about this newly formed group is we can talk openly because we're being shadow banned in even spiritual groups now. It's like, no. If we want to talk about this stuff, let's talk about it. I want to post that reel, of something that I saw a podcaster who connected all the dots. That's fascinating stuff. Anyone else ever think about that's where the future is going. I'm just saying. So thank you so much, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed Chris LeBaron's information. Have a good night.